All right. Hello, everyone. We are honored to be having David Gilbert as our guest. And as you can see, he's going to talk about using your voice in L&D. And definitely, I'll tell you, more ways than you'd think. So I would like to hand it over to Mr. Gilbert to take it away.
Thank you very much, Brandon. So again, I am David Gilbert. I'm a professional voiceover talent. And before we start, I just want to lay some ground rules. First, what the session is not about. It's not about how to do narration, how to make cartoon voices, how to set up your own audio studio, how to take care of your voice, or anything else to do with voiceovers. This session is all about you. So a little bit about me. I spent 24 years in sales and marketing and consumer goods, sales and marketing roles in consumer goods industry before I started voiceover in January 2016. I've attended over 300 in-person events since then, and I'm a single dad living in Toronto. So because of all that experience, I thought, well, you have a voice, you have an opinion, you have a viewpoint. So be your authentic self, because there's only one you. I thought, well, how can I help you maximize your career? And I realized that it takes a few things. It takes knowing your career path. It takes understanding what business you are really in, which will be surprising to you. A continuous learning and skills development. Understanding the similarities of learning L&D and marketing. Showing your true capabilities. And getting uncomfortable, what I call the N word. So let's get into it. So knowing your career path. I kind of equate that to Wizard of Oz. You know, Dorothy going down the yellow brick road. Unless you know what path you're on, it's going to be kind of difficult. And without a clear direction, it's like steering a ship out in the vast ocean without any clear idea of where your destination is. And if you're not clear, which a lot of people aren't, and I wasn't many years ago, there's a great system called Ikigai. And it's actually a Japanese concept meaning a reason for being. And that combines various aspects of your life. So what do you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. So at the crux of that is your Ikigai. So it combines your passion, your mission, your vocation, your profession. And I would encourage you to take a look at that in more detail. I also love to see what Simon Sinek talks about, knowing your why. And there's a really great TED Talk that's received 13 million views on YouTube. And this is really the basis of what you do, why you do it, why your organization, your department, or company exists. And if you don't know the why, the how and the what is almost meaningless. Other thoughts. So I was just on a call with somebody just about an hour ago and talking about careers. And a job is not a career, but a career has jobs. So if the job you're in isn't leading you on a career path, it's just a job, and it's okay if it's just a temporary thing. But ideally, you want to have jobs that are aligned with your career. As a voice actor, I've come to realize that, or actually was brought to my attention by a very good coach, was that anything that's going on in the back of your head, all the emotions, anxiety, stress, anything that's going on, will come out the front of your mouth in your voice, and they can hear that. And you could probably hear that I'm kind of nervous because this is my first time presenting. So if you're not confident and comfortable when you're doing interviews, let's say, it will come out in your voice. So anything you can do to calm yourself down and be confident and be comfortable, anything you say will come out sounding stressed. This is what I believe. Don't be afraid to show your authenticity. Tell people what you know and what your belief systems are. A very good actor called Kay Bess. I was at a conference several years ago, and she had a keynote address, and her whole mantra was trust and be brave. So when I take that to be trust in yourself and be brave to take those risks, and just be comfortable in that you know what you're doing, and just trust in yourself. So once you know your path, then be the driver of your bus, not a passenger. For so many years, I was a passenger on my own bus in my career, where I would leave jobs as opposed to going to something. I was never really driving my career. I was always a passenger. So that's the last thing I'd leave you with that in terms of knowing your career path. Second thing is understanding what business you're really in. Now, this comes from a book, This I Know by Terry O'Reilly, who's a 30-year ad man in Canada. He's done podcasts. He's got a show on CBC radio. And it really boils down to changing your perspective. And that means, looking at companies or yourself as to what you really do or what you really are. So Apple, you think, well, they're in the phone business, they're in the technology business, service business. No, they're actually in the personal empowerment business, because what their products do and all their marketing is towards what you can do with the product, not the number of megapixels, the RAM, any of the details, none of the benefit of the features. It's all the benefits. Michelin, you think they're a tire company. No, they're in the safety business. Nike, you think apparel, sporting goods. Nope. Motivation, best slogan ever. Just do it. Molson Coors, you think alcohol? Nope. Party business. So what does that mean for me, or for you rather? You're actually moving people from point A to point B using the vehicle of knowledge. You basically change people. They're not the same people after they've been trained or taught new skills or information. In fact, you're not the same person after you finish this webinar or this whole series. You're not the same person you were before you started, even though you may think you are, but you're not. Another area is continuous learning and skills development. So what I'm saying is not just about L&D. About marketing, learning human behavior, learning creative design, video production, AR and VR, and everything else that you can think of that would be part of your job in L&D. I also encourage you to follow and engage thought leaders in your field, and maybe even look for ways to collaborate on research studies. It's a great way to get your name out there. This is something that I've recently become adamant about, is schedule regular periods every week for your own personal development. So whether or not it's Monday mornings, Friday afternoons, whatever it is, schedule those times where you work on yourself for your career. I've always been a big fan of the fact that there's huge similarities between L&D and marketing. And it's much simpler than you think. There's a target. So in marketing, they have a target market. In L&D, they're your learners. And beyond marketing personas, which happened in the marketing field, you should think about what your learners' motivations, likes, dislikes, demography, etc. Like what makes up them, what would drive them. Because if you don't know who you're presenting this training to, it's pretty hard to know what those drivers will be if you just focus on the content and not on the learner themselves. And in marketing, there's something called the 4 Ps. First one is product or service. In your case, that's the knowledge or the training, the actual training program. In marketing, there's a place, which is the store or wherever location of the retail is. In learning, it's where learning is happening. So is it at home, at the office, on the shop floor, in the transit? Figure out where they're doing their training. Promotion. It's obvious from a marketing standpoint, but from an L&D standpoint, what are you doing to get buy-in from employees to get maximum engagement or value from the training program? Even if it's mandatory training, you still have to convince them that this is important to them. The last one's price. So how do you justify the time, expense to management for development, execution of training capabilities? This is where it makes sense to have a real solid game plan to say, if we spend X, we're going to get Y. The next area I like to talk about is showing your true capabilities. And it's come up many times in conversations I've had with people, either in group settings or individually. And, employers look backwards. So they look at your resume, they say, what have you done in your history? What have you done in the past? But in companies, look at vendors looking forward, like, what can you do for me now? They don't care what you've done. They care, what can you do for me today and going forward? So with that, act like a vendor. So if you come to the table with, this is what I can do for you today, it'll make you much more marketable. How do you do that? Well, produce content showing your expertise, not just the visuals. Show your design capabilities. The more visual, the better, obviously. Show them the why. How does your portfolio examples show you understand the business needs of the training, think the benefits of a product instead of the features, and ensure you have a decent portfolio website. There's lots of examples out there showing what you can do or haven't or have done. So let's say you're in a position where you were underutilized and you can do more than what you're being allowed to do. Well, if you create a great portfolio that shows your capabilities, that shows the future employer, wow, you've got a lot more potential than what your past experience has shown. Most importantly, show the thought process or the why. I've seen several portfolio websites that show really great work, but it doesn't show why you created that. What was your thought process? What's the outcome you're looking for? What was the challenge? So if you can detail that, then whoever's looking at the portfolio will see that you've done your homework, not just in terms of making something look pretty. It actually meets the business needs. All right, getting comfortable with the N word, networking. So, like I said, I've been to over 300 events, so I know a thing or two about networking. And to be honest, networking doesn't have to be scary. And it's not just for extroverts, because believe it or not, I'm an introvert. And if you're shy, Christopher Lynn shared this wonderful post just the other day. It's how to network with 17 tips for shy people. And so I would so encourage you to get out of your comfort zone and out of your shell, because networking is not an easy thing. It can be very stressful. It can be very nerve-wracking, but I think it starts with understanding yourself and understanding the difference between an introvert and an extrovert. There's a link to a YouTube video by Simon Sinek on this. And in a nutshell, and I saw him live a few years ago, and he was asked, how can you stand on stage and present to thousands of people if you're an introvert? And he says, well, presentations, that's a learned skill. The difference between an introvert and extrovert is where you get your energy. Introverts lose energy from people. It causes them to expel energy, whereas extroverts gain energy. And he came up with this wonderful example that I use all the time that really helped me understand why it's okay if I go to a networking event that I only talk to 6 out of, let's say, 200 people. So example goes like this. An introvert wakes up in the morning with a wallet with 5 coins. Each social interaction, he gives up a coin. When the wallet's empty, he's done. He has to go by himself to recharge. An extrovert wakes up in the morning with an empty wallet. Every social interaction, he gains a coin. At the end of the day, the more coins he has in that wallet, the better he feels. So basically, the more social interactions you have as an extrovert, the more energy it gives you. The extrovert, it's draining. So as long as you understand that, and if you go to an event and there's 50 people there, if you accept that you can only have 3 or 4 good conversations, don't kick yourself if you don't have any more. That's all I'm trying to say. So again, attend local networking events, local where possible, and virtual, meet peers and prospective employers. But above all else, and you probably heard this many times before me, is try and build genuine connections or relationships. Don't just go with an intent to sell or get a job from somebody. It's all about building up the relationships so people know who you are, what you do, and really who you are as a person. And it takes time. People are not computers. It takes time. So, starting today would really help. I also want to have a fallacy, talk to you about this fallacy. I don't need to network if I've been in the same company for years. I can't tell you how many times I kicked myself for over the last, 24 years before I started voiceover, that I was in different companies and I never networked. I never really reached out to people on LinkedIn. I never did anything like that. So when I needed to look for a job, I didn't have a network. I didn't have anybody to rely on or even to reach out to. So changing that thinking is kind of critical if you're looking for jobs. Second is, if I'm not self-employed or freelancing, it doesn't matter. Building a network, you've probably heard this phrase many times, your net worth is your network. And if you don't have a network, it's hard to build anything. So I suggest attending conferences and trade shows inside and outside your field, because you never know who you'll meet and could be helpful in the future. For instance, as a voice actor, I should never, ever have attended a mining trade show. But because I was the only voice actor I know of that attended that show and going up to booths, and even though the people there wouldn't be able to hire me, but if it's a large mining company with 50,000 employees, well, obviously they're going to do all kinds of different productions that may need a voice. So it's building a connection with maybe the salespeople there who can get me a contact in the company. So if you go to a trade show or conference or some kind of networking event that's not related to your field, you'll stand out. And be active on the platforms where your tribe and potential employers spend their time. So if you know most of your employers will be on LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn. If they're on Twitter, go to Twitter. Facebook. And remember one other thing too. Your employers are people. So they're going to be on these social networks anyways. So not that you're going to go and reach out to them from a work standpoint, but at least to get to know them as people will definitely help you when, let's say, you submit for an application for a job, and you can actually tailor your introductory email that says, hey, hopefully, how was your vacation to Tahiti or whatever it is? Use something from their life, and that builds up rapport. And look into appropriate groups online and in person. So meetup.com is great. And of course, anything on LinkedIn. So my final thoughts, you are you Inc. So even if you're not employed, you are your own business. Even if you're employed, you are selling your services for a salary, a weekly wage, hourly wage, whatever it may be, for your services to the company. So if you think about it in terms of you are a business, well, you have to grow your skills. You have to you're trading your skills and knowledge for money. You have to do all the things that a business would do. You have to market yourself. You have to build your skills. And if you think about it that way, you actually have a tremendous value to the organization. Now go out there and make happen. Thank you.
All right, fantastic stuff, David. Thank you very much. So we do have a few minutes if anyone wants to throw a question out to David. And I want to share, I just posted a great portfolio website, because you mentioned portfolios, from an instructional designer, Devlin Peck, that I found, where he'll actually help instructional designers create online portfolios. So check that out. So are there any questions for David? I am checking if anyone has any questions. Networking actually brought a lot of buzz in the feed there. It was really a good call out, because you're right, in this industry, it's definitely good that's what we're doing here, right? So
yeah. Really I like what John mentioned. I guess you found ways to manage your introversion, taking little breaks, having quiet moments. For me, it was more just understanding my limitations or my safe boundary. So I know people, and I can't understand people who can go into a room and literally work the whole room in like an hour and talk to people, and they're very sociable, and I'm kind of jealous of them, because I would never have the energy to go up to more than, even at some of these events where there's 4 people talking, and the awkwardness of walking up to a group that is already chatting. I just I don't know what to say.
You're perfectly right. Quick story on that. We hired, so when I was at Sun Microsystems, someone attended, my VP was having a conference presentation. He attended it. He walked up afterwards and introduced himself and gave her a resume. And she ended up calling me later and saying, hey, I like this person's resume. We ended up hiring him, and he stayed with us until we became Oracle, stayed at Oracle, and now he's at SAP. So you just need to put yourself forward and put yourself out there. If you are intrigued by someone, even like in these presentations here, right? If you find a opportunity you want to seek, definitely go for it, right?
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned, comfort zone. It's easy to, no, I'll stay home. I won't go online. It's easy to do nothing. It takes courage. It takes risk to go out and put yourself out there.
Exactly.
But
all right, well, great perspectives, David, and it's really appreciative for the time you spent and the expertise you gave us. Great presentation. And
Thank you. My pleasure.
If there's no more questions, we'll let David get back to what he does best.
Well, this is where I talk to myself. So
I spend a lot of time doing that too. But
yeah, as long as I don't argue with myself, I'm okay.
Yeah, right. Or let the arguing win. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Everyone, thank you so much. And David, it is a pleasure to have had you. And thank you so much for coming to L&D Cares. We really appreciate it.
Thank you as well.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.